welcome to Abnormal Presence Sassy Saristas, a tête-à-tête or guftagu with some phenomenal women with chutzpah, pizzazz and attitude. My guest today is multifaceted, a broadcaster by profession and a raconteur by choice. She has many stories hidden in her sari folds. She's none other than Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Chabra, or Vidi as I fondly like to address her. A professional broadcaster who has broken the glass ceiling and retired as the Director General of Doordarshan, the world's largest public service broadcaster. In a diverse media career spanning more than 35 years, she has worked in key positions in All India Radio and Doordarshan and is a domain expert in content creation for All India Radio through award-winning documentaries on social issues. She's also a Commonwealth Fellow specializing in social communication and community radio and commercial broadcast. After retirement, as a matter of hobby, she writes extensively on handlooms and saris on social media and is an influencer for the revival of 6 yards as an unstitched garment. Her warmth, hospitality, and generosity in sharing her knowledge leaves me speechless every time I interact with her. I have great privilege and honor to host Vidi as my Sassy Sarista today. Welcome to my show, Vidi. I am so happy to have you with me today. Finally, the stars aligned and you were able to give me time. I'm so honored for that.
Thank you, Kamla. I'm equally happy to be with you and chatting with you.
Thank you. Our viewers will be so delighted. People love hearing you. Vijayadi, tell me a bit about what your growing up years in Bhilai was. How was school and college life and Delhi University? And what were your earliest influences on saris and handlooms? We all know Vijayadi today. We'd like to do a little bit of a flashback.
Okay, I'll start with my childhood in Bhilai. See, when I went to college, I used to think, why did I come from a small place? Because I went to Delhi University to study. But today when I look back, I think I was very fortunate that I grew up in a township like Bhilai. My parents were post-independence India's parents, and they were very aspirational. They wanted their children to do very well. They wanted to put in all that they had into our education. So Bhilai was a small place. They were only engineers, doctors, and a few shopkeepers. And all the parents were educated, and they wanted their children to do well. So there was immense pressure on us to do well in our studies. And so we ended up doing well in our studies, and parents were patriotic. So that's why I think I'm very, very patriotic, extremely patriotic. We were forever, listening to their talk that they are building modern India. When I was a small child, my father would come back home with those blueprints, which had maps of the entire steel plant. Bhilai was Asia's biggest steel plant. So when I would ask him, what is this? I was very small. I would run to him and I would ask him, what is it? So he'll say, I'm building modern India. We are all building modern India. So I used to think modern India is a thing, something that they are building. So I grew up listening to those kind of talks. And anyway, my parents were very ambitious about my studies. They did a lot of research as to where should I be going. My father is an engineer, so he wasn't particularly keen that I become also an engineer, though most of the people of my age in Bhilai ended up becoming either engineers or doctors. I was the first one to study humanities because my father noticed that I was good at history, I was good at civics and economics, and I was debating already. I was good at, speaking Hindi, which was not my mother tongue. So he decided, it was his decision. He decided that I should study humanities. And I was the topper. And my school was expecting me to top Madhya Pradesh board because I had topped 8th board. So when I took humanities in class 9th, my principal came home and asked my father whether he didn't want me to study further. You know, that was the concept of people going in for humanities. So my father said, no, I wanted to study much more than anybody else. So anyway, that's how I landed up in Delhi University, because those days, Delhi University was at the top. And he chose, I got admission into Indraprastha, Miranda House, and Lady Shriram. And my local guardian, Professor Manoranjan Mahanti, who later became Vice Chancellor of Delhi University, my father's cousin, he somehow suggested that I should go to Indraprastha College, which was the oldest women's college of Delhi, very traditional. At the same time, had lots of women, successful women, the first IAS officer, the first IFS officer, they were all from my college. So that is how I landed up in IP College. It is popularly known as IP College. And I went to stay in the hostel of IP College. And my journey actually begins from here. You know, in school, I wasn't much aware of what was really happening to me. I was working hard. I was coming first in the class and I was doing well. Now, when I look back, a lot of stories come to me, which I write. But at that point of time, I wasn't really aware. I was young, you know. So, but when I came to college, I suddenly realized a lot of things about myself. Number one, I had come from a small place and Delhi was wild. You know, I don't think in any other decade, Delhi has been as wild as it was in 70s. I'll tell you, if you walked, you know, in the lanes of Delhi University campus, on the one hand, you'll find posters of Che Guevara. On the other hand, you will find John Lennon. You open the cupboards of all the women, you'll have the photographs of Beatles. Somebody will have photographs of Rajesh Khanna. And the clothes that they wore were so different from what I was wearing. I went there with my chudidar kurta, because who bothered in school? Half the time we were in our school dress. No one really bothered. I used to wear some skirt blouse or some chudidar kurta. So when I landed up there, the environment was so different. We had just come out of an Naxalite movement. I'm talking about 70s. I had girls, you know, my friends who were sent by their parents from Calcutta forcefully because they were all involved in the movement. It was black and white. I call 70s black and white because television was black and white. We had a women prime minister who had just won a war with, you know, we've just had come out of the Bangladesh war. So women were all cheering up for the prime minister. So it was a very emancipated environment that I went into. So I had to measure up other things later. My first problem was my clothes. I thought I was completely out of place. And I would write to my father that I used to write only to my father. And he would reply on behalf of my mother. So I would write to him that why did my mother not prepare me for you know, this kind of a situation. I'm not properly equipped. I don't like my clothes. You know, I'll write long letters. The full Indian letter will be filled with these kind of things. And my father would very calmly write to me, your mother thinks you are becoming frivolous. You better concentrate on your studies. You know, all these things will fall into place. Anyway, first 3 months, I could go home only after 3 months. The first 3 months, I observed two things, that the teachers were very smart and they wore saris. There were a lot of other girls who were day scholars. They used to come in saris. And there were some very smart Bengali girls from Lorry to Calcutta who were wearing saris. So I decided that I'm going to wear saris. There was another reason. See, I always looked up to people. I still look up to people. There was a girl called Yuna Baljit Singh. She was a senior. She was in her master's final year, and she was college president, and she used to wear sari. I was barely 3 months old, and I said, I must become college president one day. I must look like Lina Baljit Singh. I don't look like her at all. She was a tall, fair girl, big built. But I said, इसकी जैसे दिखो तो कोई बात है, वरना कोई फायदा नहीं इस कॉलेज में आने का. Anyway, so she used to wear saris. Very smart woman. So I went home and I told my mother, I want to borrow 7 saris from you. So, and 7 blouses. I'll manage. So I picked up 7 saris, some Bengali cotton, some Odisha cotton, 2 silk saris. Both of them were kanjivarams, simple kanjivarams, and all unmatched blouses. Why? Because my mother always wore unmatched blouses. I write about it. She wore only chint. Only chint she wore. And she told me much later, she wore it because that was their commitment to Swadeshi, because chint was banned by the Britishers. And so all of them used to wear chint blouse. And she always wore unmatched blouses. I would go to my friends' houses when I was young. I'll see their mothers, wearing all matching blouses, and I'll come back home and I'll say, why don't you wear matching blouses? Anyway, so I went to college with those unmatched saris, unmatched blouses, and I started wearing them. The ragging was still going on. So I used to be bragged, by my seniors that why am I wearing such funny clothes? But I had no other option. I continued wearing it. And then I started going for debates. Strangely, Delhi is North India, and the people in Delhi speak Hindi. But one of my teachers, she was a great writer, Indu Jain, she noticed me in college, and she told me that I speak very good Hindi. And she said I must go for debates. In school, I used to go. So I started going for debates in college. And I started winning prizes also. People really appreciated my Hindi. It's so strange. Of all the things, I was rewarded for the kind of Hindi I was speaking. And when I started wearing saris, then suddenly everybody noticed. By that time, I had started putting this bindi after seeing Ankur. I had started making this juda. So I was just like this. How you seeing me in so many years, I haven't changed at all. Nobody let me change. After college, I met my husband. He wouldn't let me change. I wanted to keep my hair open. He would not let me do it. Now when I do it, you sometimes see my pictures, IG, with my hair open. Immediately prompt comes phone calls from my daughter. Oh God, why are you doing it like this? Why should you keep your hair open? You look nice just the way you are. Anyway, so this is how I looked, and I was much appreciated in the university because of what I wore, how I dressed up. So this is how my sari journey started at 16. At 16, I started wearing saris, and I'm here with you, still wearing saris.
What a delightful, absolutely delightful story. And I'm so glad that, your professor, Indu Jain, noticed that spark in you. And, you kind of, you always need somebody in life, I think, to call out to you at moments in life. There are angels who appear, who kind of guide you in the right path, right? I think she was your guiding angel at the start. From IP, debating, how did you turn towards broadcasting?
When I say this, nobody should think that, I'm showing off or I'm proud. But I want to say this because all women must feel like this. Therefore, I like to share this story. So Bhilai was a small place. So I was a known person. If you still go back to my school, my name, you will find me in that board that you have. I was always, I knew that my name has to be there in that board. It looked so difficult to me in college. When in my first 3 months, I said, my God, such a huge college. Why did my parents send me here? I wonder if I can do something out here. So then my roommate would ask me, she would say, but why are you so restless? 5 years are way ahead. I said, but at the end of 5 years, my name has to be there in every possible board. She just would not understand this. She said, well, why do you want your name to be there? I said, otherwise, what's the point coming here? My parents are spending all their money on me. And anyway, so I started working very hard. I really worked hard. I had to work hard, going from a small place. My medium of instruction in school was Hindi, and Indraprastha was one of the top colleges. Everything changed for me. So, end of it, I ended up doing quite well in my studies, and I got into a lot of extracurricular activities. But the most interesting thing was I got into politics, student politics, which I really cherished. I really cherished. Sometimes I also wish I had continued, but life takes its own course. So I got involved with JP movement in a big way because I was president of my own college, and my contemporaries were Arun Jaitley. He was university president, I was my college president, and all of us were very much into it. In fact, during the movement, my father was asked to take me back home. My principal wrote to my father that for 1 whole month, you please take her back, otherwise she'll be in Tihar jail. So I was actually forcibly taken back home, and my father would sit in front of me and give me a lecture that you're doing anti-establishment work and you will never end up getting a job and whatever. So, but I said, but I want to go back and I want to be just the way I am. Anyway, everything settled down, and many students like me were sent back home. So we came back, and everything fell into place after that. So, so by the time I came out of college, my name was everywhere in the board. I was awarded the best all-round student of my college, and no one really remembered what kind of a fresher I was coming from a small place. No one remembered. And when I think of that, I often tell my children this also, that if you work hard, you can achieve anything. No one today in Delhi University would ever remember how, I was, nobody would have noticed me in a crowd when I reached my hostel. But by the time I left, everybody knew me. I had also started doing a weekly television program. Television was black and white. So if you remember, there were programs like, do you remember a program called Magic Lamp, which used to come? So, yes. So there were two very smart girls who were the first producers of Doordarshan, Kirti Jain and Shukla Das. Shukla Das was in Bombay and Kirti was in Delhi. So Kirti was a judge in one of the debates. So I won first prize in that. So she asked me to come for the audition. So I took my friends Vinod Dua, Arun Singh with me, and we all made it. 3 of us made it, and 3 of us did 3 programs alternately. And Madhavi Mudgal, if you know the famous dancer, Odissi dancer, she used to do the dance and music program. So we were 4 compares for Yug Manch, which was Tuesdays 7:30, every Tuesday 7:30. Television was black and white. And it used to be very rewarding when in the DTC buses, we used to travel in buses. In the buses, somebody will stop me and say, don't you come, aap aati hai na Mangalwar ko us program mein. So, but we were very naive those days. I didn't think I was doing something very big, but I enjoyed it. I thought, television is a big thing. I must be there. But my ultimate dream was to be in the All India radio. See, television was very new, and of course we were fascinated. But from my childhood, my dream had been to be working with All India radio. And, I didn't know what those people looked like who said, ye Akashvani hai. अब आप देवकीनंदन खत्री से समाचार सुनिए. So, I wanted to do something like that so that millions of people could hear you. I was an avid radio listener. I learned Hindi listening to radio. My parents spoke Odia at home, and their Hindi was atrocious. All four of us, brother and sister, speak excellent Hindi, and I learned my Hindi listening to radio. So by the time I left college, I had all these dreams, that I wanted to be a broadcaster. I was in the politics, and my parents were very unhappy with me. They wanted me to write civil services. I enrolled also. I started preparing for it. But midway, I thought I shouldn't be cheating my parents. I'm not going to join civil services. I have to be in AIR or Doordarshan, because I used to go there to do my program, and that beautiful building in Parliament Street, it really used to call out to me. I said, I can't be working anywhere else. I can't tell you, Kamla, how strong that thing was. And when I would tell my parents, I would go home, tell them, my parents were very progressive, they were not repressive kind of parents, but yet they could not understand. My mother would say, what kind of a job it is? Is it a class 1 job? Is it a gazetted job? She'll ask, whatever little she knew, she would ask me. So finally, I didn't write IAS exam, but this was also through UPSC. This is called Indian Broadcasting Service. I had to give an UPSC exam in any case. So I cleared this exam. I topped my year, and I joined the combined service for All India Radio and Doordarshan.
So your story, Vijayadi, is so much about, about the Paulo Coelho syndrome in Alchemist of, when you want something really very strongly in life, the universe conspires to make this happen for you. Your story so far that you've narrated looks exactly that you wanted something really bad, and that happened for you. You made it happen, rather. That didn't happen for you, you made it happen. So tell me now, we've moved from Indraprastha to university to your career in broadcasting. So was there any interesting story of the sari also in your stepping stone to broadcasting?
I started wearing saris at 16. And to start with, I had 7 saris and 7 blouses. So whatever money I would get from my comparing, we used to get just 100 rupees per program. And you could get wonderful saris in 50 rupees. So I started collecting my saris, like Sanganiri sari, or even a printed silk would come in 50 rupees, So I started collecting my own saris. And I used to wear my sari in a particular way for Doordarshan. Take the palla like this and bring it like this. So this becomes like, a V at the neck, the border. And everybody was much appreciative of the way I wore my sari, and people would compliment me in the bus or somewhere, wherever they would see me, they'll say, "Aapki saadiyan bahut sundar lagti hain." So I said, I wanted to tell them I have just 7 saris, But anyway, so sari became very dear to me. I was very aware that sari has added a lot to my confidence, because until I started wearing saris, I was completely lost. I was no way, how old I must have been when I completed my master's, maybe 20, 21, whatever. So I was very confident for my age, and sari contributed a lot to that. I want to tell you something very interesting. My sari talk began with my UPSC interview. Whatever I do these days, I'm talking sari. It began, I had a barampuri with me. That's a lacquer color barampuri. This is a maroon barampuri. That was a lacquer barampuri, which is a very rare color. And I had bought that sari with my own money. I wore that sari for my interview. My surname was Kanungo. It was, there were 7 people sitting there. I didn't know who they were, but UPSC, I knew that they were all well-known people sitting out there. They were all middle-aged people sitting out there, much older to me. So one gentleman, particularly to me, and he started asking me, okay, Miss Kanungo, since your surname is Kanungo, are you from Orissa? I said, yes, I'm from Orissa. So he said, but you have applied to become a program executive in Hindi. Someone else sitting out there said, why don't you see her on Tuesday every week? She speaks such good Hindi. So my Hindi thing was over. And he suddenly asked me, okay, you're wearing a beautiful sari. Do you know anything about it? So I didn't know much about handloom then, trust me. I used to wear handloom because my mother wore handloom and I wore handloom. But what had happened? I happened to be in Utkalika, and the manager of Utkalika, they were talking about, they had some 13 pieces with them of that Parampuri sari. And they were talking with the handloom commissioner, who was also there, one Mr. Ramachandran. Those saris were woven for Mrs. Gandhi when she had gone to attend Science Congress in Orissa. And 2 saris were given to her. Rest of the saris had been sent to Orissa Emporium to be sold. So one of my friends used to work there, so I had gone there. So she told me, it seems, something very nice about this sari. You might as well take 1 sari. So I bought that sari. And frankly speaking, at that time, I didn't see much in Barampuri. It just had a simple palla, thin border. That original Barampuri doesn't even have the kind of temples this sari has. It has just this border. So anyway, that was the only expensive sari and simple sari I had. So I had worn it. So I knew about Barampuri only at that point in time. So I gave one whole long lecture to this gentleman about Barampuri sari. And he kept smiling, and I told him all about that. And out of the blue, suddenly he asked me, okay, you seem to be knowing a lot about Orissa. Do you know who Charles Fabry was? I just rattled off, yes, Charles Fabry was the Austrian gentleman who made India home. He was an art historian, and he wrote about Odissi dance extensively. Trust me, Kamla, since I was in class 3, I had never talked about Charles Fabry. That's when he had passed away, and my father had, not class 3, class 7. My father had read out the obituary to me about Charles Fabry. He is the one who popularized Odissi dance, and that is why Odissi dance ultimately became one of the classical dances. He extensively wrote about it. I don't know from where it came back right in time to reply to him. And then this gentleman said, I am Dr. Avasthi. I am chairman of the Sangeet Natak Academy. I want to tell you that Charles Fabry was my very dear friend. He is no more. And I'm so happy somebody of your generation knows about Charles Fabry. So I really made it because of these 2 questions. There were plenty of other questions, but by that time, I was in my element and I was talking to them as if they were my friends. But the Barampuri did it and Mr. Charles Fabry did it. I topped my list, and since then I have been talking about saris. Later I got to know Mr. Avasthi very well because I joined All India Radio and I was dealing with these kind of people. He was really a very, very well-respected art historian, and he wrote only on Odisha, and I was giving him a lecture on saris, But young people are daring. I think young people should always be daring. They should not ever worry about what anybody is going to say, how, when you are young, you can take all the risks. I don't think at this age, I would like to lecture Dr. Avasthi about Odisha saris or Odissi dance or anything. Then later what happened, I never forgot this. I said, saris have given me everything. I better learn about them. If I didn't know about that sari that day, I don't know which way my interview would have gone. So I made a conscious effort. Whenever I would buy a sari, I would ask the salesperson, or if it's an exhibition, I would ask the person, because those days you couldn't Google. And I knew more or less about whatever saris I had. I knew what they were, where were they from, and but consciously, I wasn't talking about saris all the time. Other things became so important. Sari was just part of me, whereas there were a lot of more important things. I got married. I had to bring up my children, take care of their studies, their homework. I used to be very devoted mother, as I was a very devoted officer of All India Radio and Doordarshan. I intermittently worked in both the organizations. So my day was full. I loved cooking, I loved stitching, I loved painting. With all this, I don't think I was talking about saris. It was just taken for granted. I started talking about saris only after retirement.
Okay, so interesting. All India Radio and Doordarshan both happened intermittently, as you said, and I have read that your career was spanned almost 35 years between the two, Diggaj organizations, really. So, 35 years of a career in broadcasting, surely there must have been so many challenging projects, some really path-breaking moments in your career history. As a career marketer myself, I'm just dying to hear what those moments in your life that defined you as you are today. What were those moments really?
I would say that I was also fortunate to be working in an organization like AIR and Doordarshan. Initially AIR, because Doordarshan was at its nascent stage, and I was at the national, the Delhi station of All India Radio, a great place to learn my work. And strangely, it was an organization where there was no discrimination between men and women. It's very strange, but there wasn't, because the women voices were cherished by the listeners. So our women announcers were the most cherished people in that organization. Similarly, now people like us were joining as producers, program officers and producers, and taking care of the management and other things. So we could blossom. You know, um, I went there very young. I was barely 24, straight out of college. 1 year preparing for the exams and all that, and then I made it. So whatever I am today, I would give a whole lot of credit to my initial years in All India Radio. Um, I must tell you one small incident. I had a production assistant. She was a physically challenged Muslim girl who spoke impeccable Urdu. And because I came from Madhya Pradesh, my Urdu wasn't so good. I would never put the nukta at the right place. So, but I wanted to use my voice. Though I was a program officer, I didn't need to use my voice. I could take any announcer and make them do my programs. In one particular program, I pronounced Zaruri as Jaruri. She was recording me. I was her boss. She was little hesitant to tell me, but she was a brave girl. She said, "Madam, ये आपकी आवाज में नहीं जा सकते, इतने अच्छे अच्छे अनाउंसर हैं, आप किसी को भी बुला लीजिए, उनसे ये कमेंट्री रिकॉर्ड करवा लीजिए." मैंने कहा, नहीं, क्यों, मैं खुद ही करना चाहती हूँ इसको. She said, लेकिन आपको नुक्ते तो लगाने नहीं आते, आप कैसे करेंगे? Then she told me कि क्या गलतियाँ उसमें थी. Then I said, okay, Parveen, every day you're going to teach me for half an hour how to speak Urdu properly. But I learned a lot from Parveen. And that day she told me, madam, ये जो गेट आप देख रही है ना इस बिल्डिंग की, ये 14 भाषाएं हैं हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में. कम से कम एक भाषा आपको अच्छे से बोलने आनी चाहिए, वरना आप इस गेट के अंदर नहीं घुस सकते. ये ऐसा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है. Because in 14 languages, news used to go, national news used to go from Delhi itself. So she said, 14 भाषाएं में से एक भाषा आपको आनी चाहिए, तभी आप इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के गेट के अंदर आ सकती हैं. So speaking properly, speaking well was such an important thing. It was an obsession with people. And most of the people were always conscious whether they are speaking properly or not, whatever language they are speaking. That's the first thing I learned. People were very well dressed. My seniors were extremely well dressed. So I learned that from my bosses. And of course, every program that I was doing, I was learning. We were taught to learn a little bit about everything. When you are a producer, say you are a producer today, you need not know everything that I'm going to talk about, but you need to know a little bit about broadcasting, a little bit about sari to talk to me. So this is what we were taught. So even if it's about road construction, if I'm going to do a documentary, I'll end up learning something. So this habit of wanting to learn about everything, I inculcated while being in All India Radio in my initial years. So obviously when I was buying a sari, I was asking all kinds of questions, and it was all going in and getting stored right here. And when I retired and all these sari groups happened, IG happened, I started writing. When I started writing, I really, honestly, trust me, I did not know that I know so much about it. And it became a passion to write every day about whatever I am wearing. I try not to check uh, the Google. I try not to see anything. I write only as much as I know about it. Okay, so I was a young broadcaster. I was wanting to do everything. There was no discrimination among my male colleagues and me. My station directors always ended up being very fond of me because I was hardworking, I suppose. I spoke well, I wrote well, so my programs used to be good, and I didn't mind staying back late. My husband was very supportive. I was staying with my in-laws, so my daughter was being looked after by them. I could stay late in office, so I had all the qualities that broadcasters need, you know. So people were generally fond of me. This particular incident, I will tell you when I was very young, before Mandira was born. Uh, Sunil, this was the time of Punjab militancy. Sunil Dutt had undertaken a peace march. He had been all over Punjab and he was entering Delhi borders. So he had to be recorded. This was for national program. He had to be recorded with most prestigious program. So my station director gave this job to me. My colleagues, my male colleagues, two male colleagues who worked with me in the same unit were aware that I was expecting my first child. And outside recording, what we call an OB recording, outside broadcast. For that, you needed to carry this bigger machine, which was no less than 3 kg, called Melton machine, which had 2 spools in it. Those days we didn't have. Today we have such fancy machines. Even with my phone, I can record. But it was a heavy machine. You had to carry it on your shoulder, and obviously I had to do everything on my own because I couldn't have a production assistant handling it. We were expecting a lot of crowd. So these two male colleagues of mine went to my station director, a gentleman called Mr. Sharma, who's no more. So they went and they said, you can't send Vijaya, you know, she is a woman and लड़की है, इतनी भीड़ होगी, वो वहाँ पे कैसे करेगी? So he said, वो लड़की है, इसीलिए मैं उसको वहाँ भेज रहा हूँ, क्योंकि वही कर पाएगी, आप लोग नहीं कर पाओगे, उस भीड़ में रास्ता ही नहीं बना पाओगे आप, वही बना लेगी. So anyway, I'm sure he didn't know that I was expecting. If he knew, he wouldn't have sent me. But I didn't want to say no. So he said, अच्छा तुम्हें उसकी उतनी चिंता है तो तुम पीछे पीछे बॉडीगार्ड की तरह उसके साथ चले जाओ. They were a little offended, my colleagues, but they were very nice. One of them came with me, and my production assistant also came with me. But when we reached there, God, sea of people. Reaching Mr. Dutt was impossible. So I carried my Melton machine. I used to wear, trust me, 4.5 inches heel. You have met Manoj. He was so much taller than me that I was always conscious of it. And I always used to wear big heels. So big heels became part of me. So I was on my heels. I was in a sari and I was holding a Melton machine. I was all alone. My colleagues literally got left behind, pushed behind. I reached Mr. Dutt. And I told him this is for AIR. See, those days AIR was very, very, very big. It was not like today. The national program was a big thing. It's a big honor if anybody features in national program. So I told him this is for national program, and he agreed. So I said, should we record? He said, how long? I said, it's a 30-minute program. I will record 45 minutes. So should we record? He said, here. I said, here, yes. He said, but I am on a padayatra. I could be standing in one place and for 45 minutes. So you walk with me and I'll talk. I said, no, I can't record like that because sound quality will suffer. So there was a problem. So he said, okay, I have a solution. You walk with me. I will stop in different places to have a glass of water, maybe half an hour or 1 hour, that's what he said. I said, every half an hour, 1 hour. And he said, and whenever I stop, you ask me one question. I will reply, and then we can finish it. You can do the entire Padayatra with me. Oh my God, I walked with him for more than 2 hours, but I completed my recording. And it was a difficult task, Today, when I think about it, I really feel scared. And Mandira always tells me, whenever I tell this story, if she will watch this program, she'll tell you, oh, Mama, you did not think of me at all. But anyway, so these are the kind of challenges were there. And I loved doing it. It was a similar kind of challenge when I got involved in the politics and JP movement in Delhi. And I remember in millions of people in that rally. There was a big rally in towards the end of the movement. Of all the people, my photograph and Kavita Chaudhary's photograph was published in the cover in print. And my father got hold of it. He said, in millions of people, only your photograph had to come. And his main concern was, you are anti-establishment, you will never get a job. So anyway, so these were the kind of risks I loved taking. I don't know whether it was worth or not, but my career was full of these kind of risks until I became a station director. And then I kept moving up, and my next level of adventure was cricket.
Wow.
When I was a young program officer, I thought I was a very good producer because I made good programs. My programs got national awards, and I thought I'm a good producer and this is my niche. Then I got my promotion and I became a station director, and I headed very important stations. I was heading Vivid Bharati, the most popular station of this country. Then I headed AIR Bombay, which was the capital station of Maharashtra. And I thought I was a very good manager, because people liked me, I could manage problems. And so I thought, okay, this is my skill, that I'm a good manager, and that's what you need to go up in life. Just then, I was awarded a Commonwealth Fellowship to go to England and study any of the areas that you wanted to study. I chose to study privatization of radio because FM was just happening in India. Only All India Radio had FM stations. By that time, we already had 71 local radio stations on FM mode, but privatization had not happened. And we all believed that even though we work for the public broadcaster, we believe that media should be privatized because that is the only way to democratize media. So I chose to study the private radio setups in UK, which was very challenging. It was the first country which had FM stations in such a big, large number of stations had gone, private licenses were issued to them. So that is what I went to study there. And all stations were commercial stations. They were making their own revenue. And I came back very charged. I said, why can't we commercialize all our stations? I was in AIR then. I was forever talking about it because we had only one single commercial station, that was Vivid Bharati. Only on Vivid Bharati we were selling spots. All other stations were like some, God's own stations where we could not play commercial because commercials were really looked down upon. Before the news, after the news, we never ran commercial, as if it is going to insult the news, if you put commercial. So that was the kind of mindset people had in a public broadcasters like AIR and Doordarshan. Both Doordarshan still was to some extent by that time commercialized, like Chitrahar and feature film were running commercials. So this became my project when I came back. I was 40 then. And at every forum, I would talk about it, that we need to sell because government wanted us to make money. We had to make money. People wanted money, but insiders didn't want to put commercials anywhere. So anyway, finally, one gentleman called Rajiv Ratan Shah, he was CEO of Prasar Bharati. He noticed me and he gave me the task of setting up the sales and marketing. And I set up this division in Bombay, a very suave office, just like an advertising office in the Worli complex where you have Doordarshan office. And I started selling things. Primarily, I was given a job to sell Doordarshan, but package AIR if possible. That's how it all started. Lot of resistance from my own colleagues, and industry was very apprehensive because till this time, DD was being sold by third party who were outside of DD. They would take the contract and they will sell our airtime, which I found very, very insulting. Why should the national broadcaster be sold by some small sellers, Anyway, we started selling and I had to keep making appeal that give me back feature film, give me back Chitrahar. I was given only national news to sell. And it's very difficult selling news as compared to the private channels that also come in by that time. People had started talking in terms of TRPs, So I had to learn all about TRPs and everything. So while all this was going on, something very interesting happened. So you have to have patience to listen to this. So cricket, we had the cricket rights for 5 years. Today, to understand it better, today these rights are with Star.
Yeah.
So we had the most precious property with us, which used to get 100% viewership even then. Because we had 2 channels, we had DD National, we had DD Sports. So satellite homes got it, the terrestrial homes got it, all put together, 100% viewership was there for cricket. But it was being sold by a third party. And the third party was giving pittance, 12 crores, 15 crore per series. So one such series was put out for bid. So they used to advertise and then people used to apply and whoever got the bid used to sell. India West Indies was the series and 25 crore was the benchmark bid amount. No bids came. And that day, DG and CO, Prasar Bharati, both happened to be in Bombay. And they were feeling very bad that no bids came, and the corridor gossip is that if we lower the bid to 15 crores, X will pick it up. So that's when I just jumped in. I said, why do you want to lower the bid? Why don't you give it to me to sell? My division is now fairly well established. So Dr. Qureshi, S.Y. Qureshi, I don't know if you know about him. He became the Chief Election Commissioner later. Much talked about gentleman. He's written a book about the election process in this country also. He was very smart. And he was somebody who always loved taking risks. So he said, "Acha Vijaya, tum kar logi?" मैंने कहा, हाँ, मैं कर लूँगी. He said, "तो ठीक है, you do it." And then they took the flight and they went away to Delhi. I knew it will never happen. So what I did, I quickly called up some 50 clients in the industry. I said, if I do cricket, will you support me? Will you buy from me? And what was the rate that you paid last time to the X party who sold it? So I got all the information collected in 1 hour's time, and I wrote a letter that if you let me sell it, I will make 40 crores. I came home after sending the fax, and I was telling Manoj about this. Manoj said, "What are you talking? Is this your own office? If you don't make 40 crores, who's going to pay that money?" I said, "Okay, nothing can be done now. I have written the letter." That letter went up and down in the corridors of Mandi House for 15 days. But finally, Dr. Qureshi approved it, and he called me one day. He said, "Vijaya, okay, fine. You market it, and let's say, तुम्हारे बगल में Arabian Sea है, नहीं होगा तो हम दोनों उसमें डुबकी लगा लेंगे." Because it was government money, we were risking. Suppose we didn't make even those 25 crores for which the bids hadn't come. And I had no clue. I didn't even know. I knew nothing about cricket, let me tell you. So I sat down with my husband, and I literally learned, he drew the whole thing for me. So that I had to know how to play the commercials, where to put the commercials. So I learned all this anyway. And we, on a particular day, we started selling it. We opened this thing, and I went away to my son's college. It was his exam, one of the board exams or something. So I was sitting there in his college, in Xavier's. My boys started calling me, and one of them says, "Ma'am, I think we've gone wrong about the rates. I had a heart attack." I said, "You think our rates are high?" So because based on some calculation, we had put per 10-second rates. They said, "No, the phones are not stopping. Everybody wants to book." So I said, "It means our rates are low. Let's just hike the rates." He said, "Can we do it?" I said, "Just hike the rates. Trust me, in the same day, we hiked the rates 3 times." And I was worried tomorrow audit may ask me about differential rates and all. But I knew that private channels sell at a differential rate. So it's okay. So in the evening, when we did the calculation, we had already logged in 80 crores. Just then, Dr. Qureshi called me up. कि क्या हुआ विजया, कुछ बात बनी? So I said, "I don't know, showing 80 crores, but I need to, we were from a government setup. We had set up a very high-tech office. My boys were working on Excel for the first time. I was working on Excel for the first time. And as you know, in government, no senior officer does things with his or her hand. I was sitting on my computer and looking at it. I said, "Sir, मैं ना उसको manually calculate करके फिर आपको confirm करूँगी." We took 1 hour calculating thousands of seconds, every day 5,000 seconds. Or 21 days, it takes, all the series takes 21 days. And calculating, multiplying. Finally, I was sure that we had logged in 80 crores. We were not getting a bid for 25, and we had logged in 80 crores. And we were learning on the job. So I told him, "No, we have logged in 80 crores. I think we'll make more than 100 crores because I still have 1,000 seconds with me, which I will sell one day prior to the match." So he said, "So you are learning, huh? Tum bargain karogi logon ke saath." So he said, "Okay, can I call a press conference?" I said, "Yeah." So at 9:30 at night, he called a press conference, and he said that cricket will, for all time to come, next 3 years, we had 3 more years left with us, will be done by my in-house team. So that's how my cricket journey started. And we started marketing. And after that, we never made less than 200 crore per series. I did 8 series. I also did India-Pakistan, which happened after 10 years. For diplomatic reasons, it was not happening. I did both the matches in Pakistan also, in India also. So it was great. Now when you see the cricket screen, whatever you see, action replay, little paste ups, here, there, whatever, it's all doing of mine. Those young boys and girls who work with me, they would come to me, they say, "Ma'am, wo Kajaria Tile se booking aayi hai." Kajaria Tile is a small client. Obviously, they can't put the kind of money Unilever can put, or Samsung can put, LG can put, but you need them also there. Why should they not be there? So we would find these little spaces, those pop-ups, and so that they are visible. We discovered these things, our engineers made these pop-ups and these paste ups, and now the whole industry follows it. So it was it really gave me a lot of hype because I was a woman and and BCCI would initially never take me seriously. I must also tell you this. They would never take me seriously. You know, I had to attend all the BCCI meetings because I was representing DD. So initially, if I said something, I wanted few support from the ground also. You know, the commentators had to give me cues so that commercial could be played. They would never, you know, they would kind of dismiss me. I said, okay, fine. Initial 1 or 2 meetings. Then what happened? There was a match. It was Pepsi Cup. The sponsorship rates were circulated. So logically, Pepsi should pick it up because it's Pepsi Cup. And but Pepsi people were really arm twisting me. They said, no, your rates are very high. We're not buying. We never paid this kind of money. I said, well, you have to pay this kind of money because 2 other sponsors have already picked up. I used to have 3 sponsors and 4 associate sponsors. I said, my whole thing is full now. It used to get filled in 1 day's time. So he said, no, you have to negotiate. I said, I'm not negotiating. So I wrote a letter to them. They had the first right of refusal because they were ground sponsors and it was Pepsi Cup. So I said that I will wait for you until this and this date. This is the last date to log in. So they called me up. They said, what will you do? I said, I'll decide, but you will not get it. I think they didn't take me seriously. So on the last day when it expired, I sold it to Coca-Cola. And then, trust me, everybody, starting from minister to my own CEO, who was, pressurized by the ministry, and everybody started calling me. I said, nothing can be done. Coke is a big client. I can't cancel it now. They said, okay, so what are you going to announce? I said, very simple, Pepsi Cup brought to you by Coca-Cola. They will actually do it. I said, yes, I will actually do it. And we actually did it. That series was every day announced on air as Pepsi Cup brought to you by Coca-Cola. After that, everybody kind of, everything fell into place. BCCI was pretty respectful to me. For 3 years, I did cricket and we did very well for DD. We made crores and crores of rupees for DD. So, and now when I look back, I did various kinds of things in my 35 years, but the most adventurous thing was cricket.
How nice. Some of these things today we see and take it for granted. It's wonderful to have been part of, the advent of all of this, to be part of this and to actually influence it to such an extent. It must have been such a fantastic feel and a high. I can almost feel that energy coming from you, through Zoom actually. I mean, that's such an inspiring thing to tell women who are starting out their careers or who are in mid-careers and wondering what they're doing in life. To hear a story like this is so inspiring. Hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode of Sassy Saristas with Vijayalakshmi Chapraji. We will be back with more inspirational stories on part 2 of this episode. Do stay tuned. Thank you.